Hark! The affliction of an addiction. This man's quest to squelch his yearning for a forbidden pleasure, prized fruit of bungalingus. The perineum measures quaint, but alas, it is a vast ocean. I enjoy carving into the grundle with my eyes, then with a blade. In my reckless passion, I do what I was born to do. I place the snared taint on my head. I wear it like a royal crown of ages past. But brief is my content. And again I am on the prowl. Perhaps you carry my quarry. So close to the bung. The harvest is nigh, and I'm watching. Welcome back to the Eclectic Podcast. This is episode 14. Sitting here with John Crass.
Hey.
Once again, we hope you're...
Wait, who are you?
Darian Brown.
Okay. Your brown dungarees.
We hope you're willing once again to allow us to penetrate you with our voices and reach down to your very core, where I think the true nectar of our soul resides.
Yes. Penetrating deeper than any extremity could, than any physical member could
ever hope to.
Yes, we want to get past all that, deep into the very essence of your being.
Precisely.
So our souls can cuddle.
Yeah.
We can twirl each other's our souls' locks of hair. We can just twirl them about and giggle together deep into the night.
Giggling and snuggling. That's all we want to do. That's all this is all about.
Mm-hmm. And pooping.
Well, yeah.
I mean, pooping's real. As much as people like to pretend that it doesn't happen, pretend that their shit don't stink, but I got news for them. Hey, it does. Your poop stinks like the rest of us. Why can't we talk about pooping in public? Why do people get uncomfortable? Everybody does it.
Well, I think it's one more of those, just one of those bigoted mindsets that is too common in society.
What's with the discrimination against poop?
But bigotry.
I happen to enjoy my poops. It's one of my little times of refuge. Sometimes...
Well, you make it fun. It's poo pageantry to you.
Yeah. Sometimes I laugh while I do it. Just get a good chuckle to myself.
Yeah. About
the relief and the pleasure, just sheer pleasure that I get from it. Sometimes I like to have poop fashion shows.
Yeah.
Smeared about my body like articles of clothing and walk the catwalk, strut my stuff. Little poop yarmulkes.
Yeah, I don't,
Don't pretend like you don't do the same.
Oh, well, certainly I do.
Sometimes, hey, it's a useful earplug, too. If you need quiet, you need to go to sleep, just stuff a little poop in there. It works quite well.
Certainly it does.
Okay, off topic, I read something really disgusting earlier today.
Yeah? Is it about steatorrhea?
No, nothing to do with that, but talking about poop kind of reminded me. I read this article. There was this lady that was, I believe, in Africa somewhere. Maybe South America, I don't remember, but she was on vacation somewhere. She was from Great Britain, I believe. And while she was on vacation, she noticed a fly went into her ear and flew out. And she didn't think much of it until she got back home started getting these headaches, and her face was going numb, and hearing these sounds in her head, these squirming sounds. And there was a family of maggots. The fly had laid eggs in her ear, and they were crawling about in her ear on their way to eating into her brain. But they caught it. They caught it early enough.
That's foul. That's rancid.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
I don't want to imagine.
Jesus Christ. That's some heavy shit right there.
That is not legit as buns. That is not chill. Ho.
That's so not tight.
Dude. That's fucking...
That's loose butthole is what that is. We want to keep it tight butthole.
Yeah, that's about as loose butthole as it gets right there. Jesus. Well, enough with the light pleasantries.
Yeah, we digress.
Let's get into some more serious mental fodder here, if we may. So, I thought one concept we could discuss here is the concept of nature versus nurture, or it might more aptly be described as genetics versus conditioning. And it's something that's it's a prominent discussion in this country, in this society. I mean, I remember in high school we discussed it like in English class, and I think it pertains a lot to discussions about criminal behavior, what makes a person a criminal, what makes people successful, what makes people more integrated in society, what makes people more averse to integrating with society. It's a real broad debate, nature versus nurture, genetics versus conditioning. So, what do you think? Do you think that the actions and behavior and mental conditions of people, do you think that that it's more something that they're born with genetically and that can't be altered, or do you think it's more the situation that they were raised, the environment that they lived their life, more based in their own personal choices and actions? You know, what do you think?
I think that they're both very real. They both play into who we are as people, the choices we make, why we make those choices. It's kind of a fine line between the two, and difficult to point out sometimes if it was nature or nurture behind a certain instance or whatever. But I definitely think they're both very, very prevalent in our psyche, so to speak.
Yeah.
We all have tendencies, predispositions that are probably a result of some sort of genetics. But there's also the other side where we always have a choice, and our upbringing and our friends and the previous choices that brought us to where we are in life also have a factor.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to think that nurture kind of bears more weight of the two.
Yeah, I agree. But it's probably it's both.
Yeah.
But nurture probably more so than nature.
I have a couple analogies that kind of pertain to this. Like one argument for nature having some weight in our lives. Serial killers, you know, like
yeah.
Maybe they suffered some abuse of some kind or had some adversity in their formative years, but you didn't have somebody outright training them to become a serial killer or anything like that. That was something that was probably a tendency in most cases, that they just thought, well, the answer to all my problem is just to kill. I'm just going to kill everyone. Like, I don't think any kind of abuse or adversity justifies that jump, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's a convenient argument to do away with free will. Drug culture, also another one that kind of illustrates both sides of it. You have the genetic disease of alcoholism or drug addiction that can be passed down from generations to the next. And there's both sides of it. You got the kids who experiment with drugs and alcohol in high school and whatnot and become addicted much quicker than the other kids. And you also have the flip side, where there's the kids who listen to their parents and never touched a drop of alcohol and never did any drugs, and it's a non-factor in their lives because they just never went there. But it's a convenient excuse, I think, for people to say, well, I wasn't at fault, I was addicted to drugs or whatever, because we all know, like, alcoholics and drug addicts tend to do messed up things if their addiction progresses far enough. You know, stealing from people, lying to people.
And then just excuse after excuse.
Yeah, and it doesn't justify their actions by any means. It's not an excuse, but possibly an explanation for the insanity.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you, and I do think that it's. I think that it's both. I think that I come down more on the side of nurture or conditioning. There's a term, tabula rasa, a Latin term that means blank slate, and I think it was coined by John Locke. And, you know, so it suggests that everyone is born with a blank slate, and that it's like you were saying, kind of, dictated by whether they suffered certain kinds of abuse or hardships when they were growing up. Just kind of the situation in life that they find themselves, that's what really dictates their behavior and their actions, and kind of the mindset that they live their life in. I think that it's mostly that. I think that, and this is completely arbitrary, but I'd probably say maybe like 80% nurture, 20% nature. There's a little bit of genetic predisposition, of course, to things, traits that have been passed down from previous generations, parents. If it's like a kind of a predisposition for addiction to substances and that type of thing that you were just saying. But I think that life is so, like, no two lives are the exact same, there's no two people that have ever lived the same lives, and so I think that it's really every experience is so subjective to each individual that I think it's so hard to map out like a biological, like a pattern to scientifically, like, group people in these groups and say, well, they're genetically disposed to this, or these people are genetically predisposed to that. I think it definitely is dependent on not only the environment that they were raised in and their life situation, every event that has happened to them, but also the way they've responded to that, the way they respond to all the events in their life. And I think that it's just really, it's a slippery slope to start trying to group people into demographics and all that type of thing, like this person is prone to be a serial killer or something like that. I think it's really difficult. I think that that most sciences, like physics, biology, chemistry, that type of thing, you're dealing with stuff that I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's very, very difficult. I'm sure it's way over my head, most of that type of science, but you're dealing with something that's kind of more of a constant, and you can keep chipping away at it until you understand it. Whereas with social sciences and sociology, and we start trying to look at the behavior of humans, like there's so many more variables that play into it, and no two humans are exactly the same. Like you find an element in the universe, and you can break it down and classify it or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't classify any two humans in the exact same category, because it's just every experience is just so subjective that I think it really it implies that it is the conditioning, that the nurture side for the most part. The downside of that, though, is of course that it's near impossible to really use that information to predict any human behavior, because it's so unpredictable.
Yeah, that's a good point right there. The part where you were talking about no two human lives are the same, and social science is being difficult because it's maybe not impossible, I don't know, but next to impossible to predict.
Yeah. Very,
human
very hard
behaviors and actions. I think that the one constant of human behavior and actions is that when humans get their backs against the wall, oftentimes our actions defy logic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. People put into difficult circumstances will do drastic things to get themselves out of those circumstances, and usually they're not planned out very well. There's just kind of there's definitely that side of human behavior where there's kind of the animalistic, genetic, if we want, there is that side of it to where people will react like animals when they're put into very trying, almost animal circumstances. Desperate times call for desperate measures, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So there definitely is, I think, there definitely is, without question, a genetic predisposition in everybody with certain instincts that we have, but it's, I think that can all be overcome by conditioning, or maybe, a lack of conditioning. Conditioning's not, I'm not trying to say that conditioning's a good thing.
Yeah.
It just depends on the context of the conditioning that a person has, and their ability to better themselves and try to think rationally at all times. I think that they can overcome any genetic or circumstantial situation that they might find themselves in.
Yeah. It's kind of brings to mind a quote I heard one time. I don't know who originally said this, but I always thought it was interesting. No life is without adversity. That's for certain. Everybody deals with some form of trials and tribulations, and they come under different guises. But are you going to let that run you? Are we going to let the adversity define us? Or we could take the higher road and let how we respond to the adversity define who we are as people.
Yeah, that's really good.
And I think the main thing when talking about this subject and like how they affect our actions, whether we attribute them to nature versus nurture, I think when some form of adversity pops up or something that you have to deal with pops up, the first instinct is your nature. That's what the genetic predisposition would be. And something we've talked about in these podcasts is that our ancestors, and the further you go back, come from a pretty animalistic
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, well,
So-
completely animal.
Yeah, so probably our instincts might be the wrong
Mm-hmm.
way to respond to things.
Yeah, our instincts are to survive, to get food, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's and
Kill or be killed and that type
yeah,
of...
and that it just doesn't fly in society anymore.
No,
We've evolved
so-
past it.
Now it's kind of to a point where I think you should stop and think before you act.
Mm-hmm.
And your first thought is probably wrong. Your
Yeah.
second thought is probably wrong.
Yeah.
Third thought is probably wrong.
Yeah,
Just
we gotta keep chipping away at it.
keep revisiting it until it makes sense,
Mhm.
or just turn away from it.
Yeah, yeah,
Rise above it.
definitely. Well, changing gears here a little bit, I wanted to talk about a writing from the late 18th century. Jonathan Swift. Most people are probably mostly familiar with him as the author of Gulliver's Travels. I think just about everybody read that in high school. The work that I want to talk about today is called A Modest Proposal. And it was it was a parody, a satire that he wrote in the 1700s, and it's basically, he was Irish, and Ireland during that time was very, very in a very, very hard economic time. Everyone lived in abject hardships, and their society was faltering, just flailing, and so he wrote, and there were a lot of corrupt people within their society, and so he wrote A Modest Proposal as kind of a reflection on maybe a way to he proposes it as a solution to cure the country's ills, to fix their society, so to speak. But it's satire. It's not meant to be taken literally. He's commenting on how there's a lot of corruption in their society, and how a lot of solutions that people come up with for problems in society are just inherently corrupt, and that although they might succeed in improving the economy or improving some facet of society, it's self-defeatist if it's morally wrong, if it's something that's just wrong. And so it would only be a fleeting prosperity if it's not based on some moral foundation. I know you're familiar with it. We want to read a few excerpts from it because I think it's really interesting. And the gist of it is, Swift suggested that as a way to fix the problems of Irish family life in that time, which most people were plagued with too many children, and they were all starving, and they couldn't feed all of them, and there was just mass hunger and destitution. His proposal was, well, we can fix the starvation by eating all of our infants, cooking them and eating them, and that would also alleviate the financial pressures to support children. So, without further ado, I'll let you read one of these first excerpts, and I apologize we're just going to read a few excerpts and not the whole thing, so if it might seem kind of out of context, because we're just going to kind of jump right into some parts in the middle of it, but you'll get the picture. I think these are some of the most poignant excerpts from it. So here, John, I'll let you read the first one here.
There is likewise another great advantage in my scheme, that it will prevent those voluntary abortions, and that horrid practice of women murdering their bastard children, alas, too frequent among us, sacrificing the poor innocent babes, I doubt more to avoid the expense than the shame, which would move tears and pity in the most savage and inhuman breast.
Okay, then we're going to jump forward a little bit. Here he says, I have been assured by a very knowing American of my acquaintance in London that a young healthy child well nursed is at a year old a most delicious, nourishing, and wholesome food, whether stewed, roasted, baked, or boiled, and I make no doubt that it will equally serve in a fricassee or a gout. I do therefore humbly offer it to public consideration that of the 120,000 children already computed, 20,000 may be reserved for breed, whereof only 1/4 part to be males, which is more than we allow to sheep, black cattle, or swine, and my reason is that these children are seldom the fruits of marriage, a circumstance not much regarded by our savages, therefore 1 male will be sufficient to serve 4 females. That the remaining 100,000 may at a year old be offered into sale to the persons of quality and fortune through the kingdom, always advising to the mother to let them suck plentifully in the last month, so as to render them plump and fat for a good table. A child will make 2 dishes at an entertainment for friends, and when the family dines alone, the fore or hind quarter will be a reasonable dish, seasoned with little pepper or salt, will be very good boiled on the 4th day, especially in winter. Sounds yummy.
Sounds like a delight. Those who are more thrifty, as I must confess the times require, may flay the carcass, the skin of which, artificially dressed, will make admirable gloves for ladies, and summer boots for fine gentlemen.
So there's another use for children, babies.
Being real economical with it.
Yeah. Jumping ahead again here. The constant breeders, besides the gain of 8 shillings sterling per annum by the sales of their children, will be rid of the charge of maintaining them after their first year. Again, commenting on the financial pressures of raising children. This food would likewise bring great custom to taverns, where the vintners will certainly be so prudent as to procure the best receipts for dressing it to perfection, and consequently have their houses frequented by all the fine gentlemen who justly value themselves upon their knowledge and good eating, and a skillful cook, who understands how to oblige his guests, will contrive to make it as expensive as they please.
Okay, so now we're jumping ahead to the closing thoughts, the last part. After all, I am not so violently bent upon my own opinion as to reject any offer proposed by wise men, which shall be found equally innocent, cheap, easy, and effectual. But before something of that kind shall be advanced in contradiction to my scheme, and offering a better, I desire the author or authors will be pleased maturely to consider 2 points. First, as things now stand, how they will be able to find food and raiment for 100,000 useless mouths and backs. And secondly, there being a round million of creatures in human figure throughout this kingdom, whose whole subsistence put into a common stock would leave them in debt 2 millions of pounds sterling, adding those who are beggars by profession to the bulk of farmers, cottagers, and laborers, with their wives and children, who are beggars in effect. I desire those politicians who dislike my overture, and may perhaps be so bold to attempt an answer, that they will first ask the parents of these mortals whether they would not at this day think it a great happiness to have been sold for food at a year old, in the manner I prescribe, and thereby have avoided such a perpetual scene of misfortunes as they have since gone through, by the oppression of landlords, the impossibility of paying rent without money or trade, the want of common sustenance, with neither house nor clothes to cover them from the inclemencies of the weather, and the most inevitable prospect of entailing the like or greater miseries upon their breed forever. I profess in the sincerity of my heart that I have not the least personal interest in endeavoring to promote this necessary work, having no other motive than the public good of my country, by advancing our trade, providing for infants, relieving the poor, and giving some pleasure to the rich. I have no children by which I can propose to get a single penny, the youngest being 9 years old, and my wife past childbearing.
Well, okay. So, and I'd recommend anyone look it up and read the whole thing if they're interested at all. But I think that is so pertinent and relevant to American society today because it illustrates through satire the dangers of social success without a moral foundation. And I think that just about any public debate that we see and partake in today has, you know, there's shades of that involved in it. How, you know, at what cost? At what cost do we take action, and if it's something that is going to improve the economy or enrich some certain people, or on the surface seem like it's going to be socially successful, but if it's not morally right, if it's not humanitarian, you know, if it's not in peace and love, you know, then maybe the cost is too great to carry out these systems, you know, or to perpetuate these systems, maybe, because I think a lot of the systems that we're currently living in this society might be a little corrupt.
Yeah.
Or very corrupt.
Yeah, that's almost a foregone conclusion for me. I think best case scenario is a little corrupt.
Yeah.
And it gets progressively worse from there. I found particularly interesting the part where they were talking about breeding and basically reducing them to cattle.
Yeah.
Which we've stopped short of eating babies. But, you know, with people in the modern world, your average person, middle class, basically being a myth. There's upper class and lower class, and we are the worker bees working for slave wages and stuff. Like, that's essentially what we are now.
We already are a herd.
Is their cattle.
Yeah, we are a herd already. The herd mentality.
Yeah, and I like what you said. You posed that question, you know, at what cost do we act? At what cost does all the amenities and luxuries of modern life come at? And the answer so far is at the cost of future generations. Yeah. You know, we're out there raping the rainforest and putting up federal reserves so that we can have a little bit of relief now and then sell the future generations into slavery.
Living like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, to name a few examples.
Yeah, and that's I think what Swift in A Modest Proposal just this perfectly illustrates how self-defeatist something like that is. Obviously, he was joking. We're going to eat our infants. Well, we can't eat our infants. What are you talking about? You know, but that's the same type of thing like that we're dealing with today, except it's just under a bunch more subtle guises. Mm-hmm. And it is still self-defeatist because, you know, it's impermanent and it's going to run its course. You know, it can only last for so long, and then the whole damn temple is going to topple over.
Yeah, it's not based in any moral truth. It's not based in truth, period. Mm-hmm. And so hence it is decaying in death. And it begs the question, at what point do we stop putting all this stock in decaying and dead and old, stupid ideals?
Yeah.
At what point do we start to turn the corner and do the right thing?
Yeah.
As a human race.
Yeah, you know, at what point? I don't know. I don't know if we have the ability to be there now. You know, like this is something that comes up in almost every podcast. We have the ability now to do that. We're technologically there, but it comes down to consciousness. It comes down to the mindsets of people as a whole, the entire human race, and that, as an extension of that, it's down to every individual and their particular mindset and their willingness to evolve or unwillingness.
Yeah, it boils down to a level of apathy that is so prevalent in our modern society right now. That it's just the way things are. Well, fuck that. Get up off your ass and do something about it if you don't like it. And another point I'd like to bring up is like, it seems so bleak and so doomed when looking at our world leaders and everything. It just seems like a real bleak portrait. I'd like to bring up a scripture that relates to it, because a lot of people in similar circumstance as us would, I dare say, view these politicians and people in seats of power as enemies.
Yeah.
Well, Jesus said to pray for your enemies and love them.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and if you're not spiritual, if you are, pray for them. That would be a good place to start. If you're not, just hope for them to make the right decision. Yeah. Believe that there can be a brighter future.
Yeah.
And do everything in your power to manifest that.
Yeah, I think that it will happen, hopefully, but it's interesting to me how satire, like Jonathan Swift, how through these satirical means they really cast the most, or shine the most light on the way things really are in society, because it's basically like if something's true, then it's true, and what satire does, like A Modest Proposal, is it strips away all of the kind of pretense and all of the like kind of subtle, kind of wishy-washy excuses and justifications that are thrown out there all the time, and all these like debates and issues that kind of get so convoluted that it's so hard for the average person to see, well, what's right, what's wrong. It's too complicated, I'm going to stay out of it.
Yep.
What satire does is it just strips away all that bullshit and just like throws it out, like throws the truth out there for you. It sets it on the table, and like this is like the base of this debate. It takes it to a real personal and like kind of an emotional level, I would almost say.
Yeah.
Like it's like, here's the, like it breaks it down to like a moral versus an immoral paradigm.
Really just cuts right to the core. And they tend to, it's satire, at least in this instance, probably most, is kind of telling the truth through metaphors. Artists use lies to tell the truth, to quote V for Vendetta.
Great film.
So like, but it's even if it's not satire, like great books that have some kind of social commentary or poetry that has some sort of fundamental truth in it, that's one of a writer's go-tos, is to use metaphors to convey their thoughts. And in satire, especially in this instance, you have kind of a darker element of comedy, I guess.
Yeah, but it's a dark comedy.
It's interesting to me that that's how people get the truth.
Yeah, well,
rather than someone just like telling it to you to your face, like straight up, stripped down, and real. We need these like bleak, horrifying, but also written in jest.
Or to quote Bruce Wayne, or maybe to quote the Nolan brothers, I don't know who wrote this part of the script, but people need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy.
Yeah.
And, that's it's a good movie, but that's actually a really, really astute little quote from that movie, I think.
That's what I love about those movies, is that it's chock full of little anecdotes and useful metaphors and, you know, fundamental truths that are not typical for a comic book movie.
Yeah. But again, though, you know, that ties in directly to what you were saying about how, like, you know, people need, it's not like if you explain it to them, if you frame the debate in the way that the mainstream media does, or that people in their community do, just the average, probably misconceptions about a lot of these debates, they're not going to want to get involved, or they're going to be misled by it in some way, and maybe, you know, they're not going to, I don't know, just like through satirical means like this, it just really it breaks it down to its most like base level, to where you can probably see right versus wrong in a more clear way than you can with all these like legal justifications and all this like bureaucratic convoluted you know, these diatribes that politicians and mainstream media, you know, that they go on. It really just kind of cuts through all that bullshit and just offers you a clear look at the real fundamental issue of what we're talking about, what's going on, you know. That's what I think, anyway. I think that satire is an invaluable tool, and it has been for centuries in combating the mainstream propaganda and lies that we all know about, that we all see. It's prevalent.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's basically what we get from the politicians and the mainstream media, is diversionary tactics, deflecting the real issues, you know, dancing around, and
they always put their spin on it, you know.
Yeah, they're practiced in deceit.
Yeah,
that's what they are. Politicians don't get where they don't get their seats of power without telling a bunch of lies along the way. I mean, look at the president, and how often do they really uphold what they say they're going to do while they're campaigning?
Yeah.
Which is, I get it, it's nice to believe that that's what they're going to do, and people get behind them and vote for them. I'm not ripping on that, but it's time for something to change there, because like that's what we get when you look at the mainstream news and your politicians for current affairs and the truth about the world. No, you're gonna just get some pretty picture, and they're not even gonna talk about what you really want to know.
You're gonna be consuming an agenda. That's all it is. You're gonna be a consumer of an agenda.
Yeah.
You know, of the social engineers that, you know, are at work for whatever purpose, whatever piece of news you happen to be listening to.
Yeah. When you look to, you know, the right books, the right poets, the right musicians for this ever elusive truth, that's where you really get it, where they cut to the core.
Yeah.
Because they're not full of shit.
Yeah, that's the, you know, you have to sidestep mainstream culture. And if you're successful in sidestepping mainstream culture, you know, you're going to arrive at all these great minds, you know, contemporary and classic and ancient, you know, throughout all of the history of human civilization. You know, we can look back at any time and find these great minds, and these, you know, people that have really went against the grain and spoken truth and left us with some sort of wisdom to draw from, and then perpetuate that, you know, carry the fucking torch onwards, hopefully, you know, if we're up to the challenge.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's just, you know, it comes back to the whole thing about don't integrate with society. Don't let other people do your thinking for you.
Culture is not your friend. And that's the only way for progression, I feel like, is for people now to take up that torch, take up that mantle, and keep pushing forward. And it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be easy, you know, because living in our sheltered little lives and believing everything as the truth that is presented to us is a comforting notion, and it's easy to get caught up in that.
Yeah.
But what's the real common denominator amongst the truly greatest minds of human history? They were outcasts. They were they weren't buying it so much as, the rest of mainstream society. So
they were independent thinkers.
Exactly, and that's like something I would a observation I would put forth, I guess, is that if you're experiencing some kind of discord in your life, or some kind of uncomfortability, some level of that, then you're doing something right. Especially when looking at yourself in relation to the world around you.
Yeah.
If there's some level of uneasiness, uncertainty, don't be afraid of that.
Yeah, there's an old Mark Twain quote, or should I say Samuel Clemens. I forget. I'll paraphrase it because I don't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically like, if you ever find yourself at the point where you're agreeing with the masses, it's time to step back and reevaluate your outlook. Because anytime you're in agreement with everyone around you, and in agreement with most of the people in your community or society, you're probably you've probably had the wool pulled over your eyes at some point about this. So it's time to take a step back and do some independent thinking,
which is kind of an interesting paradox.
Yeah. Oops. Technical problem here. Hold on.
Kind of an interesting paradox there is that.
Sorry about that.
In this day and age, in the world we live in now, that's very true.
Yeah.
But the future that we all hope for is also one of unity and, like everyone being on the same page and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a sad example. Although it's true, it's a sad example because it represents the state of the masses being misinformed and basically sheep. Mm-hmm. And the minority is usually right now the outcasts, like you were saying before. It ties back into that, how the outcasts are the ones that are really the truth seekers and the ones that find wisdom in dire times. And so that example will only be true until we actually do start getting on the right track, I guess. And then as soon as we do that, that example will cease to be relevant. Yeah. But it still is relevant today.
Oh, it certainly is. I'm just saying that it's an interesting paradox that the future that we hope for
it's a bleak example.
Yeah, because let's look at some of these past examples of people getting united under a banner and having the like mindset. Bush with his war on terror. We can go back further to the Nazis.
The Nazis are a big one.
We can go back even further to the Crusades.
The Crusades, yeah. There's endless examples throughout history.
We could go all day on this.
And today, today it's just as prevalent as ever. Like the Bush thing, and Obama is just an extension of that, even though people don't want to admit that. But
it's so true. But didn't he say fucking the first time he was campaigning, I'm gonna have all the troops out of Iraq by 2011, I think it was, or something.
Yeah. They're not out. Well, they're still not out. We have like massive military establishment there now, even though it's officially ended.
Everywhere that Bush had a military presence, we've probably set up more shops.
Oh, dude, Obama is Bush on steroids.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
I get it. Like I said earlier, we should vote. We should have our voice heard, but not in this three-ring circus sideshow of a political arena. It's not. Did Obama really uphold what he said? I'm going to ask anyone out there who voted for him. I wanted to believe what the guy was saying. But has anything really changed?
Yeah. I think
it's gotten a lot worse.
I think we can offer a challenge to anybody to defend his, at least as far as foreign policy and national security go, in quotations. The fucker is a liar, and he's escalated all of the nefarious programs that Bush initiated. So...
He's perpetuated or escalated.
Escalated.
Every single one of them.
Escalated, just about every one of them, absolutely. The Patriot Act's just been pumped up.
Oh, God, yeah. we talk about it pretty much every podcast since this became national news. But yeah, the NSA and shit, like, okay, Patriot Act was one thing, but this is like every American citizen being spied on.
Yeah.
Legitimately.
Yeah, it's the absolute truth. This is no joke.
And it's totally constitutional.
They're listening to us right now on YouTube or whatever.
And if you're listening, Mr. NSA guy, fuck you. Try to find me, you fucker.
Blow it out your ass.
Yeah, blow it right straight out your fucking filthy ass.
Get a real job. Why are you working for the NSA? You're just too stupid. You couldn't, like, create any music or
Come
art.
and find me. I dare you.
Fuck you guys. You guys are assholes.
Bunch of...
You're assholes. Stop spying on the American public.
Weird, wrinkly, warded up boners you are.
Assholes. Probably just bought ourselves tickets to Guantanamo there.
Fuck them. If I go to Guantanamo, then I must be doing something right. Bitch.
Yeah.
I dare him. I dare him to come get me. I'm gonna pull some,
Let's just make a disclaimer, not that you're planning on doing anything nefarious, just because they're assholes.
No, but I'm gonna pull some, like, magician shit. Some, like, Benjamin Martin stuff. I'm gonna just retreat out into the woods.
Whoa.
No guns. I'm just gonna disappear on their asses.
Yeah.
I'm over here.
Yeah. Yeah. We're ghosts.
I don't need guns.
Guns are for douchebags.
I'm way, way beyond that now. I'm on a whole different level. I'll just give them head trips.
Head trips. Yeah. Maybe spray him with some LSD or something.
I was just gonna say, have like an aerosol can full of LSD. They come at me.
No, I'm over here.
Pure concentrated dose, like 100 hits. Just totally
have a nice trip.
Give
him some Schwarzenegger one-liner.
Have smoke bombs and LSD in aerosol cans. That's all I would need.
Oh shit.
Alright, we're getting way off track.
Where do we leave off?
We were commenting on the paradox of how
a public... Alright, well, I was going to go into, again, public support for these programs and the patriotic thing. Like, because that's still, I think, the biggest hurdle in my eyes. That I just keep coming back to that just because I think it's the most destructive for our country. Just how everyone's just so just like patriotic and
just gung ho behind this shit.
Yeah, rah America, oorah, yeah, fuck that shit, man. like, and there's too much. I should probably, I don't know, man. I don't know how far I even want to get into this.
I teabag those motherfuckers
for fear of alienating potential listeners.
I sneak into their houses while they're sleeping and teabag them.
Do you?
Yeah.
I'd sneak into their houses, but I'd just like eat raw steaks and dip them in flour and watch them sleep.
I'd drip blood on the bed.
Yeah. No, but seriously, patriotism and nationalism is out of control in this country. When you can't watch a football game without like having like a national anthem and some friggin' troops come out all up in with their little dog and pony show, up in their cute little uniforms and having like fighter jets or bombers fly over, like that's a sign of it being way out of control. That's so nationalistic and just fucking corrupt as fuck. But people just cheer it on like it's the right moral thing. Like heroes. Dude, stop. It's so convoluted. It's so much bullshit.
Just spare me. Reminds me of something that I've heard on certain news outlets. I'm cruising the internet or whatever, reading about Edward Snowden and the NSA scandal.
Yeah. Poor guy.
You know, an example of how extreme and dumb this patriotism has gotten is, you know, people arguing against it because it is unconstitutional. It really is, you know. Mm-hmm. And
absolutely,
you got these people,
total
you know, who are probably
Fourth Amendment,
far right wing,
just
up the government's ass. And you know, he's a terrorist, or why are you worried if you don't have anything to hide? No, fuck that.
Yeah, they've never picked up a single goddamn history book in their life, for starters.
No, and let's just get to a real base level here. It's dangerous when people fear their governments. People should not fear their governments. The government should fear their fucking people.
Absolutely.
And don't get that twisted.
Mm-hmm.
So unconstitutional and just bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that I have anything to hide, that I'm running guns or drugs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
No, fuck that. I just don't want them in my business.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm having phone sex with a girl, and I don't want to be advertising that to everybody.
Yeah.
Or maybe a man.
Sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
I'm just like
Sure.
getting real rowdy.
Hopefully
with
it's
it.
in the right state.
Just having
Hopefully
bisexual
it's not in
phone
Texas.
sex.
Oh shit! Sorry about that. We're having glitches here today. 1 second.
While we're on the subject, I'd like to read a little something for the listener, which I wrote. No big deal. Verbatim. I know it's a comfortable thought in this country to view our government and our military as the good guys, but are we really any better than the Nazis? In the age of drones and guided cruise missiles, it seems that the line of thought is, if we kill the bad guys from far enough away, then it's less real. There is a sense of detachment or less of a culpability for the perpetrators of these heinous acts. It brings to mind a quote from a poem by the great writer Thomas Merton. Do not think yourself better because you burn up friends and enemies with long-range missiles without ever seeing what you have done. Just food for thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that, I think that was a concise breaking down of exactly what ails this country.
Yeah, because we're America, you know? We go out in the world and we take what's ours, and we don't apologize to nobody, they just suck our fat dicks.
Dude, I see a meme on the internet all the time, and it just grinds my gears. It's like, has some big American flag or an eagle or some shit, and it's like, I'll never apologize for being an American. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? First of all, who's asking you to apologize for anything? It's just this, like, arbitrary statement that they're throwing out there. Some rhetorical, patriotic fucking platitude. I'll never apologize for being American. Like, what is that? What are you implying
What does
here?
that even mean?
Yeah, what's that even mean? Like, so you're not? Are you trying to Are you trying to offer up your agreement and your support of, like, foreign policy of the United States? Because that's what I get from it. It's like, that's a statement of support for the foreign policy of the United States.
Yeah.
That's what I get from that. And if you have, like, support for the foreign policy of the United States of America, well, come and talk to us. Come on our podcast. Because we would love for someone like that to come on with an opposing point of view. And, you know, I'm not trying to scare anyone away, but, you know, let us, come on here and let us tear you a new fucking asshole. Intellectually.
Well, I mean,
metaphorically.
There's nothing saying that we couldn't have such a discussion.
We could have a civil debate.
Yeah,
but,
without being civil and being friendly and still have a good old time, you know?
yeah, sure. Kick back a few. But, you know,
Just leave your guns at home.
yeah. Yeah, you don't need to bring your guns.
Okay, back to what you said, that I'll never apologize for being American. That's
Yeah.
just so...
I see that on the internet all the time.
So ridiculous. It's just like, okay, people who say they're proud to be American, you know?
Yeah.
Or, I'll never apologize to be American. Okay, no one's asking you to apologize. Something that you didn't choose.
Yeah.
And how ridiculous is it to be proud of something that you
Yeah.
didn't choose?
Again, back to what we were talking about, like in the first podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can you take pride in something that you didn't choose, earn, or create? Some random chance.
Maybe that's all some people have to be proud of.
Well, that's sad, but they still shouldn't be proud of it.
I know.
because it's so not individualistic. It's not you. Like, you're just... You won a crapshoot and you got born in America. You should be grateful for it, not be proud of it. Pride and being grateful, those are two opposing things.
Totally.
You can't be proud and be grateful for something at the same time. I don't think. Maybe in certain things. Maybe if it's something you really created as your own self, as individual you did. Maybe I get like being proud about it, but pride cometh before the fall.
Yeah, pride is one of the 7 deadly sins. It's
like, what's so great about having pride in the foreign policy of the United States? Like what? I mean, is there something that I don't know about? Like, I've read a lot of fucking history. Like, I don't see it. Come and tell me, because I genuinely want to know why you're proud of the foreign policy of the United States. I don't get it. It's a lot of fucking murder and corruption and destruction.
Some people are into that kind of thing, though. You know,
yeah,
different strokes for different folks. Some people are just into
egotistical assholes.
Yeah, all right. I agree. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, and trying to maybe get inside the minds of some of these people. I'm definitely not one of them, but I'm just trying to come up with an answer of why someone would feel that way.
I think that any debate we would have with such a person, despite how civil it might be, I think it's going to end with us just being like, all right, go play Call of Duty and go enlist in the military. Whatever, have fun.
Have fun getting your head blown off.
Yeah. Fuck, I don't know. I don't get it. I admit that I don't get it. It's beyond me.
Yeah.
Doesn't add up.
But yeah, I like that distinction that you made between pride and gratitude.
Yeah.
Pride is it's it's not constructive. I mean, like, at least in things like we're talking about, like being an American and things that you don't have any hand in. Having pride in personal achievements and whatever, you know, that's fine. That's fine as long as you're not a braggart and, you know, alienating people with your pride. And arrogance kind of goes hand in hand with pride when it gets to that level. But gratitude, yeah, like that's fine. Be grateful that you're an American. You know, this is still one of the freest countries in the world, despite all of its flaws.
Sorry again. So sorry. This keeps happening. Sorry.
But you know, pride in things that we have no hand in is just it's just dumb at a base level.
It's just foolish, foolhardy, egotistical. Let it go, friend. Let it go.
That's just dead people's baggage that you're carrying around with you.
Yep.
Let it go. Fuck has got to go.
That shit's got to go. That shit's got to go. Well, let's take a moment here. So, part of all this, I think, is the predisposition for most people in society as a whole to look at anything in terms of black or white, bad or fucking good, heaven and hell. You know, there's always these polar...
You're either with us or against us.
Yeah, exactly. There's always these two polar extremes that they try to, like, divide every facet of life into. It's one side or the other side. When in reality, it's the gray area in between, that all of society, all of life, all of reality takes place in that gray area in between somewhere, as opposed to these black and white polar little points that everyone tries to, like, divide themselves towards. You know, you're totally missing the alternatives to everything that way. You're shutting yourself off to alternatives, and that's dangerous, I think.
Yeah. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. You know, when you're looking at things in just black and white, this is good, or this is really bad, or whatever, and ignoring everything else. You know, we've talked about on previous podcasts the good that can come out of a seemingly negative situation that you don't see at the time. That's the animal side of us, the animal mind that wants to attribute these two polar opposites to everything. It's either this or it's that.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's all just the same. It's the flow of life, and just living in the moment is what we should all strive for.
Mm-hmm.
And fully experiencing it, all the bad, all the good. That is the essence of life. That's the shades of gray. Everything that makes it up in between.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of takes me to another quote that I heard recently. It's a little bit of science for you. 99.99% of atoms are empty space. So, from that, we can make the argument that most of what we see is not at all as it appears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even ourselves.
Yeah.
We're barely here.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, it's just you can't, you're just inherently overlooking so much to whatever it is in life that you're looking at, if you limit yourself to a black and white paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to two sides, to two opposing polar opposite positions, because the truth is never that so simple. It's never so black and white. That's not how the universe is constructed.
Yeah.
It's just not the way that existence is.
The truth is still true in those black and white situations, you know, in the good and the bad. The truth is still true when it's going good. The truth is still good, or is still true when it's going bad. And the truth is still true in all the shades of gray in between and beyond.
And I would just say that I think reality lies in the shades of gray, and that these are the heaven and hell, black and white. These are human abstract concepts that we throw up there on either side of any conversation, and it's just a way to divide people and to attribute them with you know, the black or white outlook on said issue. And it's the Republican versus Democrat paradox, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're failing to look at the issue from an individualistic standpoint and come to your own conclusion and take in all of the information that would allow for an objective perspective on it. You're closing that off, and you're not doing yourself any favors by doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's about time we wrap this one up.
Yeah, probably a good one.